This is a breaking news update, and this one hits home for every small holder out there, so you're going to want to hang tight. If you own just a few hundred XRP, even 325, you might be far closer to the wealth class most people will never reach than you think, and you definitely don't want to miss the next biggest thing since the dot-com boom. What's happening right now in this market isn't a pump, it's a positioning phase. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you why even a small bag could be the ticket to the top 1%. Make sure you like and subscribe right now. It really helps push this message to the masses, and it's greatly appreciated. At the time of recording, XRP is trading around the $3 zone, consolidating steady and building pressure. If you're watching later, the price may have shifted, but the structure will still tell the same story. This is not financial advice. Always do your own research and consult a professional before making any decisions. Now let's get to the truth almost no one is talking about. When you hold 325 XRP, you're not holding a small bag. You're holding fractional ownership of a finite liquidity network that's about to go mainstream. The reason the price feels quiet right now is because we're in the part of the cycle where wealth changes hands silently. The charts look flat, the headlines sound calm, but beneath the surface, liquidity is migrating. From speculators to builders, from traders to institutions. That's how every historic revaluation begins. Ripple is not a startup anymore. It's a strategic layer in the financial plumbing of the world. And what makes this moment so wild is how few people see what's already in motion. While the noise focuses on ETFs and altcoin rankings, Ripple's building payment corridors across Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and Latin America that move real money in real time. Every corridor that goes live removes more XRP from the open market, and those tokens don't come back. They flow into institutional loops where they circulate as liquidity, not as inventory. That compression is what most people call scarcity. But for holders like you, it's the lever that multiplies small positions into life-changing ones. Because when utility expands, every XRP becomes a working asset in the new system. And owning even a fraction means you own a fraction of that. System's capacity to move value. That's why it's not about how many you hold. It's about what those tokens can do once the network is lit up. Here's the bigger picture. Every few decades, the financial world rebalances. Money doesn't vanish. It relocates. In the dot-com era, it flowed from old industries to digital networks. Today, it's moving from legacy banks to blockchain rails. And the bridge connecting those rails is XRP. So let's do a thought experiment. If XRP captures just a tiny slice of the $200 trillion global payments market, even 0.5%, the liquidity demand alone could drive valuations that turn 325 XRP into the kind of asset most people wish they'd never sold. This isn't wishful thinking, it's mathematics. The smaller the available float, the higher the price pressure when demand arrives. And demand is arriving, quietly, strategically. Ripple's pending U.S. banking charter and Federal Reserve account applications are about one thing: embedding blockchain liquidity directly into the heart of the financial system. Once that switch flips, XRP won't just be a token. It will be the connective tissue of money movement. Think of it this way. Every corridor that opens creates another demand node. Africa was the first mass-scale test. Now Japan, Singapore, and the UAE are joining. Each new region absorbs liquidity like a vacuum. Retail doesn't feel it yet, but you will, when available supply starts to thin out and price moves like a spring releasing pressure. That's why holding 325 XRP today isn't trivial. It's strategic. It's like owning land before a city is built on it. You don't need thousands of acres to change your life. You just need to be early and understand what's coming. Most people won't see this shift until it's obvious. They'll wait for headlines and miss the window where conviction actually pays. But you're already ahead of 99% of the world just by being here, studying, listening, and holding through the quiet. Because this is the phase where generational wealth is positioned, not announced. And when people say 325 XRP can't make a difference, remember this. It's not about how many you have. It's about being aligned with the next monetary system before it's priced in. This moment is the calm before recognition. Every signal, from Ripple's institutional expansion to central bank pilots to shrinking exchange balances, points to one truth. Utility is about to overtake speculation. And when it does, what feels like a small bag today may represent a lifetime of leverage tomorrow. So before you doubt your position, look around. The world is building on rails you already own a piece of. Here's what most people never understand about wealth transitions. They don't reward size, they reward timing. You could have millions sitting in the wrong system and still miss it. Or you could have just 325 XRP positioned at the perfect moment in history, and that small bag becomes your bridge to a different financial reality. Because what's coming isn't a price pump, it's a structural revaluation. XRP isn't fighting for speculative attention anymore. It's being absorbed into the world's settlement architecture. That shift changes everything about what value even means. Think about it. Every major transformation in history followed this exact pattern. In the 90s, people who owned a handful of internet domain names or a few shares of companies nobody believed in, Amazon, Apple, Google, watched them multiply beyond reason. They didn't need millions of units. They just needed conviction early. That's exactly what owning 325 XRP represents right now. Conviction before confirmation. Because behind the scenes, the corridors are live. RippleNet isn't a pitch deck. It's a functioning global network settling payments between currencies, banks, and entire economies. That's not something you can fake. That's infrastructure. And infrastructure doesn't care about retail emotions. It moves on need. The world needs faster, cheaper settlement. It needs transparency without friction. It needs interoperability between banks, blockchains, and borders. XRP was built for that exact purpose, and every test, pilot, and integration is quietly proving it. So while most people scroll through price charts looking for hype candles, the real holders, the ones who understand what they own, are sitting on what might be the most asymmetric setup of this generation. Because the upside isn't measured in dollars anymore, it's measured in reach. Every time a new payment corridor goes live, your XRP doesn't just rise in value, it gains functionality. Each integration turns your tokens from a speculative asset into a unit of global liquidity. That's the hidden advantage of being early. Your small stack gets multiplied by the system's growth, not just its price. And here's where it gets deeper. The vast majority of XRP's supply isn't floating freely anymore. It's being locked into institutional custody, held in escrow, deployed in corridors, and integrated into remittance frameworks that don't sell back into retail markets. That means the liquid supply that can actually trade on exchanges keeps shrinking. When you reduce available supply while expanding demand, what happens? It's not hype, it's math. Price discovery starts to accelerate. That's why the next phase of this cycle won't look like anything you've seen before. It won't be driven by influencers or retail speculation. It'll be driven by necessity, when banks, fintechs, and CBDCs all start competing for the same liquidity pool that you already own a piece of. That's when the so-called small bag becomes something else entirely. It becomes your early stake in the financial grid of the future. And when the world catches up, when headlines finally say XRP becomes standard for institutional settlement, it'll be too late to build a meaningful position. Because by then, the float will be gone, and the price will have already repriced to reflect what insiders have known all along. You're not holding a coin. You're holding bandwidth, the ability to move value between systems. And in a world where money moves at the speed of light, that bandwidth is priceless. So the next time you look at your 325 XRP and wonder if it's enough, remember, you're not competing with traders. You're aligning with the next monetary framework before the crowd even realizes it exists. Because when this next chapter unfolds, there won't be any early adopters left, only participants and spectators. And the difference between those two is timing. Right now, your timing is perfect. Every market cycle has a heartbeat, and right now you can feel this one speeding up. The Great Rotation isn't a headline. It's liquidity shifting from the old world into the new. Interest rates are dropping, capital is loosening, and for the first time, institutional money is looking beyond stocks and bonds for yield that moves instantly. That's where XRP comes in. Because when global money starts moving again, it looks for rails that can carry it fast, safely, and across borders without friction. Ripple built those rails a decade before the rest of the market realized why they'd be needed. And today, while everyone debates meme coins and halving cycles, the largest funds on the planet are already testing settlement through blockchain channels designed for one purpose: efficiency. It's no coincidence that every rate cut, every liquidity injection, every ETF approval pulls crypto higher. But utility assets like XRP rise differently. They don't chase speculation, they absorb demand. When banks and treasuries move billions through these rails, every transaction tightens the key. Supply you're already holding. That's the quiet rotation no one's talking about. From volatility to velocity, from hype to settlement, from retail chaos to institutional flow. And when that shift completes, even 325 XRP could feel like an entire position in the new financial class. Because you weren't just early, You were aligned with the system while it was still loading, so keep watching closely. The next liquidity wave won't just move prices, it'll redefine what ownership means. Every major financial transformation has a quiet phase before it erupts, a moment where everything looks calm on the surface, but underneath, pressure is building with unstoppable force. That's exactly where XRP is right now. You can't see it in the headlines, but you can feel it in the structure. Supply is tightening, utility is expanding, and institutions are quietly positioning themselves for a system that no longer runs on delay, but on demand. Here's what most people miss. XRP doesn't need another bull run to move. It needs recognition. Once the world realizes that real liquidity, the kind that powers entire economies, can now move at the speed of information, it's game over for the old system. That's the moment when price stops being a number on a chart and starts being a reflection of function. Right now, less and less XRP is available to trade on public markets. Large quantities are locked into escrow, institutional custody, and cross-border corridors that aren't returning that liquidity back to exchanges. Every corridor opened, every test that becomes a live deployment, removes another fraction of available supply. It's like watching a spring tighten in slow motion. You don't see movement until you suddenly see everything move at once. That's the compression phase. And when that pressure releases, when institutional flow collides with limited float, the revaluation won't be linear. It'll be explosive. Because markets don't gradually price in inevitability. They react violently to it. That's why even 325 XRP isn't a small holding, and it's a fractional share in a shrinking pool that's becoming the settlement layer of the global economy. You're holding the key to the bridge between digital and traditional finance. The irony? Most people won't see it coming because they're looking for noise, not silence. They think revolutions start with headlines and hype, but they don't. They start with structure, math, and the slow disappearance of opportunity. And that opportunity is disappearing now. By the time the crowd returns, when XRP's use case becomes unavoidable, accumulation will be over. The price will already have adjusted to utility, and the ones who stayed through this silent compression phase will be the ones everyone else calls lucky. But luck has nothing to do with it. It's awareness. It's conviction when no one's watching. It's knowing that what you hold isn't just crypto. It's bandwidth for the next monetary system. So when you see the charts move, remember this. Volatility is just noise around inevitability. And inevitability always wins. Because one day soon, the same people who doubted XRP will realize that the entire system they rely on is running through the rails you already own a piece of. That's not speculation. That's the silent compression turning into a global awakening. And when it hits, it won't be gradual. It'll be instant. So whether you've held XRP for years or just found this video today, remember this. History doesn't wait for headlines. It's written by those who position before the spotlight. Make sure you catch the next video in my library so you don't miss highly valuable information. This is not financial advice, it's foresight. Because the ignition sequence has already begun, and XRP is the spark. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.